He's untouchable in that right flank. Check with it going. And it's in the net. It is in the net. Goal number 3. Incredible.
Eagle 7 Sports Radio. The best sports.
It's lights out and away we go. Sebastian Vettel gets a flyer ahead of Lewis Hamilton.
He's out too. I don't think he's getting up. He's done. The left hand. Come on, get up.
The best station. The best for you.
Within one.
Eagle 7 Sports Radio. Fly with us.
Hi, my name is Yinka Davis. Keep on listening to Eagle 7 Sports Radio 103.7 FM. Don't you touch that dial.
Welcome back. Well, this is the Sports Parliament, and we are reaching you from Eagle 7 Sports Radio in Abeokuta. You are watching us all over the world on all social media platforms. I hope you are enjoying it so far. Now, I want to spoil your enjoyment a little, because in coming up with today's topic for the conversation, we raised the issue of the Super Eagles, and then I started making a few inquiries. And actually, I called up Onome to ask him one or two things, because from the little information I gathered, I needed to share it with one of us, so that it wasn't as if I am the only one that heard the present state of our national team. And Onome didn't have answers for me, because like me, he had not been too involved with the national team. So we cannot accuse anybody. We cannot, we cannot castigate any group. We cannot criticize anybody. But the news is not good. Let me just put it like that. Chidi Ebere, I hope you can join in the conversation, because let's start this way.
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, let's start this way. I hear. I wish I had invited Dr. Sanusi to be on the program so he can give us some answers. But unfortunately, I couldn't reach him. And I don't know who else to reach. But we have to discuss it tonight. First of all, I hear that there is none of the Nigerian coaches in the national teams, all the national teams, none of them has gotten a contract, a letter of appointment, has been paid any salaries, earns any allowances since the new board came on board. And it is not because they don't want to do it, it is because there is no money to do it. I also hear that the national team, particularly the Super Eagles, because we're focusing on them, has played a couple of friendly matches and maybe one or two, international matches. They have not been paid any allowances or any bonuses up till now. That the only person engaged in the whole national setup is the chief coach of the Super Eagles, Paseiro. Nobody else is engaged. And I just heard this news and I was shocked to my marrow. Is it true that such could be the situation? And since then, I've been asking a few other questions. I've called up a few people. But Onome, I know that I must have tickled something when I called you this morning. What have you learned since this morning? What is the state of our Super Eagles? Since this change, because Gusau has not been able to raise money. The atmosphere is so difficult. And the only people raising money are the professional league, group. They have managed to secure some funds. But at the Super Eagles level, I hear that for the next 10 years, we may not be able to even pay off the debt, the debt that the NFF is into.
Well, Mr. Speaker, truth is, I told you this morning when we spoke, I said until I speak to Sanusi, I might not have any information about the Super Eagles, because the truth of the matter is I have lost complete faith in the national team. I mean, seeing the team list today again just made me demoralized. How can we still be? I mean, Musa has only played 6 or 10 minutes this season in his club and is invited. If we are looking for motivational speakers, we should go and get proper motivational speakers now. How can we in 2023 look at that team list now? Look at the list of players that were invited. You know, a very, very, for me, average. I mean, Joe Aribo had, how many minutes has Joe Aribo played for his club that we're watching on TV, Southampton? I mean, Ndidi Wilfred. Ndidi does not even play. Sometimes he does not make the bench. You know, and we have players that play week in, week out. Right, our strike force, yes, is potent, right? But the truth of the matter, Mr. Speaker, is I'm tired. I mean, when my friend was president, everybody spoke, talk on Omena, on Adiki, Nigerian football, and he has left now. So let's see what happens. But like I said, I don't know Gusau. I have never spoken to him. Yes, we were on the same delegation that led the Super Eagles to go and play in Liberia with George Ways on his testimonial when he was playing his last game for Liberia. Yes, me, Gusau, we were there. But I don't know him. I don't know what's happening to our national team. The only person in that in the ESCO now that are my close friends are the General Secretary, Dr. Sanusi, who is a good man, and Demola Alajiri, who is the Director of Communications. Every other person.
But what happened to all the sponsors of the Super Eagles that were paying this?
Mr. Speaker,
what
Mr.
happened
Speaker,
within the space of how many months?
You know, it's like the Nuga thing we're talking about. It has to do with relationship. Gusau was chairman of chairmen. Who does? I said this thing during the election.
No. We are talking contract. A contract has been signed. It has nothing to do with the faces. If there is an existing contract.
No, Mr. Speaker, that would be a very big disservice. I mean, you are a big player in this field. You cannot tell me that it has nothing to do with these faces. Some names open doors. We all know this now. Some people open doors. Like I keep saying, I can't speak about Gusau because I don't know him.
If there are subsisting contracts, contracts that existed before Gusau came and still exist now, why are those contracts not? What happened to the ITO contract, for example? What's the state? I don't know. I'm just asking.
ITO just recently sponsored Super Eagles Supporters Club to the Under-20 African
That's not part
tournament
of
in
the
Egypt.
Super Eagles deal. That's not part of the Super Eagles deal, is it?
No, I'm just saying they are still there because, I mean, they sponsored the Supporters Club. So I'm sure they still have a very healthy relationship with the Nigerian Football Federation. My only challenge is, you know the way I am. If I don't have facts, I don't bish around the bush, I will say it. Regarding the question you asked, Mr. Speaker, I have no facts.
You don't know that Finidi George does not have a contract. He's an assistant coach in the Super Eagles team. Who else is there?
No,
There's Salisu is there. There's Ikesho Rumu, the goalkeeper trainer, is there. At least for the Super Eagles. Those are Nigerians. Do they have contracts? Were they paid for what they did before? Did they collect? I'm telling you what I have learned. And I've not, if I had access to them directly, I would. But I up till now, because of the time constraint, but I will look into it. That's why I'm asking you. You are an insider. Anyway, Chidi Ebere, you are in Abuja, and I know you are a journalist. You are a first-class journalist, and you have your ears to the ground. You must be hearing stuff. And here we are not castigating anybody. We are not blaming anybody. We are not criticizing anybody. We are just saying it the way it is. That members of our Super Eagles have not even been paid their allowances, their bonuses for matches past. That is not controvertible. Chidebere.
Mr. Speaker, but is that not the norm, though?
No. No.
Because we've had ex-players, including a recent interview by Mikel Obi, point out some of these situations. We had the defender. What's his name now? I'm missing his name. The who had an interview to talk about how much they were being owed. So these are things that structurally needs to be sorted out. So I don't think it will be a shocking news on the street that the Super Eagles are being owed. But I think the conversation on the streets, though, is the selection of players. There are a few names on that list that raises an eyebrow. There's so many Nigerians making waves in Europe. If we insist on European players, players based in Europe, there are so many players who are doing well. And it's not like this coach has played with these players to say, okay, there are certain players who make the national teams because of their relationship with the coach and because the coach, knows them and does well with them, that he's inviting them. So except it's a case of, okay, let's go back to what was and then walk forward from there because he's the new coach, then maybe. But there are certainly some names that should not be in that list. And I really don't know. Like Onome said, and we like to stick to facts on the parliament. I do not have facts. We've always had the conversation on lack of funds for our national teams. So it's really not news, but we hope that this situation is changed as soon as possible.
Okay. All right. We had a change of regime. Okay? That's not what we are interested in now. We are looking at the team itself, the Super Eagles. We should, in 2023, have a new Super Eagles team. What we have now, does it reflect something new and refreshing from somebody looking out? You are not part of us, Satish, but you are now looking inward from outside. What do you see? What do you make of the Super Eagles? You watched our under-20s play in Egypt. Would you have drafted some of those players into the Super Eagles? I'm just asking you now. But what do you think of the Super Eagles team now?
Well, I think there was a big problem in 2022 in the development of Nigerian football, that it had probably one of the worst years it had ever had. And to some extent that continued. You had this situation at the under-20s where the coach Bosso was essentially saying he was happy with the performance. He thought they were doing well and that they were going to get Super Eagles from it. I was asking persistently who you think was going to be adopted into the team. He didn't want to answer, which is understandable. I mean, the same as the Senegalese coach, because they don't want to say, well, this one will make it, that one will make it, but this one won't. And that's the implication that you would actually get. What I did find interesting is they didn't really gel and come together until the third, fourth match. And they absolutely annihilated Tunisia. They had the situation where there were issues about some of the officiating, but to his credit, Adel Salimi, the Tunisian coach, didn't try to make excuses. He was essentially saying, we've got some problems. It wasn't just about the refereeing and the officiating. It's something we've got to work on. I would have liked to have seen the same kind of attitude within the Nigerian delegation. I think they got a lot of criticism within Nigeria. They weren't sort of seen as having done well, but I think you will find that players will come through, and this might be just the right time to start trying them out, because as has been mentioned previously, Ahmed Musa is getting near the end. You could say the same of Wilfred Ndidi and others as well. So maybe it is time to start experimenting, but you need friendlies. This is essentially the whole point of having friendlies. You can't experiment in competitive matches where there are qualifications at stake. So my advice to this would be, don't just look at it in terms of are these players being paid properly, because that's one of the biggest problems within African football at the moment. It's measured in how much money are you making for the various FAs? How much are you investing in various things? Are players making money? Is African football making money? That's not the only measure of success. It's important, yes, but it isn't the only measure. And this is what now needs to be seen. Are you actually getting a return on the investment? At the moment, the answer has to be no. So you would look at this and say, right, what can we do about it? And I'll go back to something I was saying at the time, which is the rush to bring a new administration into Nigerian football. Has it actually worked? Or should it have waited until the the situation changed and they brought on board the others who wanted to be part of it, and you had a system that was going to last for a number of years? Now people will look at this and maybe saying, Gusau can't succeed. Why didn't we wait?
You wait for something that didn't succeed, wasn't succeeding. Why would you wait for something that wasn't so? Anyway, that's not the issue.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying you wait for something that wasn't succeeding. I'm saying, why didn't you wait to implement the changes?
Okay, you mentioned the issue of money. Onome, Satish mentioned the issue of money. And
Malachi.
And the response I got from one of those I called up this morning is that, look, we are converting our football coaches into football agents.
Mm-hmm.
You don't give them a contract, you don't pay them, you make them handle your national teams, particularly those ones that are age grade. Of course, they just become agents, and all they do is shop and export players and earn a living, because they have to earn a living. So the money aspect of it is very, very, very important. And for us as Nigerians, except you want to create another breed of Nigerians, all of us, so it's about our pursuit of happiness is pursuit of money. You know, without the Malachi, forget it. So we don't want people to come and start preaching to us all those other niceties. At least as far as we are concerned in Nigeria, the money is very important. Your thoughts, Onome?
Well, Malachi answered all things. Truth of the matter is, without money, a lot cannot happen. And when we look at things without money, you see that there's a lot of vacuum. I mean, Nuga is complaining about money, for example. Talk less of the national team, the Super Eagles. Truth is, Mr. Speaker, when people begin to castigate and blame coaches that they collect bribe for players and all of that, I laugh. First and foremost, it is rare for you to see a coach who is in a proper structure doing that. It is only when there is hanky-panky or the association is not upright or forthright that you hear of all those things happening. I have never seen any coach collecting bribe, so I will not say I know of any coach who collects bribe. But a lot of players have said that coaches ask them for bribe, right? So I think if they are given a contract and they still ask for bribe, they can easily set up to be caught. But if there's no contract, with the way the economy is, it is not impossible that these coaches are doing these things that they are saying that they do, especially at under 20 and under 23 level. Because I'm very, very sure of the coaches we have at the under 17 level that they are not involved in such hanky-panky.
Me, I'm just wondering, because, okay, we all watch the different leagues, particularly in Europe, and we have watched the upsurge in the quality of play, even in our domestic league now, that is running at a good pace, and it's covered now. We can sit at home, although the coverage level is not so good, but you still can sit at home and you can pinpoint. There are a few names that, just jump at you, even within our league these days, for us to say, yeah, there are a few we can pick from our domestic league. But in Europe, definitely, Nigerians are just shining like a million stars. What is wrong with us gathering a new Super Eagles? Now that we are playing teams like Guinea-Bissau and all those small teams, can't we use that to create a new Super Eagles, a truly new Super Eagles? It will have elements of the old, but Not the very old, as Onome just pointed out, Chidebere.
I think it still goes back to our foundations, because if you don't have a system that encourages transition, it will be very difficult for you to build a new team. For instance, unlike the Super Falcons, where you can name almost half of the team, except for what we have with Waldron now. In time past, you see players go from the under-17s to the under-20s to the Olympic team, then to the Super Falcons. We've not had that in the Super Eagles in a very long time. They have a handful of players who you can say, okay, these ones came from the age grade competition, which is what every other country does. Talking about the players in Europe, we are now faced with, okay, we do have players in Europe, but are we getting the best legs who are playing in Europe? We don't get the best legs because, of course, the conversation is out there that there might be a situation where some people pay to get into the national team because that gets them better contracts in Europe where they are. So these are situations we need to solve with a working system. What is our coaching structure in Nigeria? Why do we have a hankering for unknown, unnamed European coaches or South American coaches? Why do we need, if we develop our system, we will not need to go there. Or even if we do go out, we can actually get the best. But what we're doing is we shop for, well, good enough at some point, and then we owe them, which means that the journalist cannot ask them questions that would actually lead to results, which is where we are. So it's a situation where flurry of players in Europe, are we picking the best? Do we have the best legs representing us?
Well, the good news. Let's turn to some good news. And let me start with Satish. Even though, when you mentioned the Nigerian national team, what confronts you is a hollow feeling. A hollow feeling. The Super Eagles, I just have this hollow feeling about it. I'm not really excited about it. But I'm excited about some players in that Super Eagles. I'm truly excited about this Victor Osimhen guy. How good a player is that guy? Satish.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that he's one of the best players in the world at the moment. And he has shown that. He's succeeded very, very well at Napoli. I just hope that we don't get the situation that has happened previously where they have basically prevented him from playing for Nigeria. I hope this time he comes because they really need him. He is one of the great players that Nigeria has, and he will influence the other players around him because his confidence and his skill and his ability is essential for the development of the Super Eagles in the future. Not just himself, but those around him. They need to see that he is committed to Nigerian football, that he is committed to playing for Nigeria, and that no matter what the owner of Napoli says, he will turn up. Because if you look at the latest ones over the last year, he's been absent way, way, way too much. Nigeria needs him, and so does African football.
That guy, Onome.
Mr. Speaker?
You are sleeping, eh? Sleeping on duty. No, you are not. But Victor Osimhen will make everybody wake up. You don't need to take coffee when you watch Victor Osimhen. That guy plays with such energy, man. He's a goal-scoring machine. He's a goal-scoring machine. But I have watched it. Wait now. Let me finish.
I'm not a fan. Okay.
But I have seen him play in the Nigerian national team. With the Nigerian national team, in the Nigerian national team. And there's something that doesn't, it doesn't sparkle as well as he does when he plays in Napoli. And I'm going to speak with him in the next few days and challenge him that, look, you are chasing some people's records. And until you get it like Lionel Messi had to prove a point with Argentina winning the World Cup, until you, Victor Osimhen, until you do and achieve certain things playing for the national team of Nigeria, that your greatness will still be limited. So he has to fulfill those dreams for Nigeria before he gets as fully acknowledged as he deserves. But without question, that guy is a goal-scoring machine. Now, say what you want to say. You don't agree with me?
No, I agree. He's a goal-scoring machine. He's a prolific striker. He's this, he's that. But I don't like Victor Osimhen's style of play. I think when it comes to the national team, Victor takes us for granted. That's what I think. Victor is forgetting how he got into the national team. Victor is forgetting the fact that he was a very, very known bench warmer under the likes of Odion Ighalo, and some certain people fought to ensure that he plays for the national team. And today he decides when to play for us and when not to play for us. He decides when he's going to come to camp, when he's not going to come to camp. I, for one, am irritated by such players. Now, when you watch him in Napoli, I keep telling people, national team is different from club side.
Of course.
There are some players that, no matter how poor they play for their club, they're the first names on the national team list. A typical example, Harry Maguire. Gareth Southgate, no matter how you castigate Maguire and insult him and abuse him, Maguire is the first player here on his team list. If you like, go and cry, go and scream.
Or the French striker, that tall guy
England.
who has the ball. What's his name?
England.
No, French. The French striker, France.
Olivier Giroud.
Yes, Giroud.
Fantastic.
Giroud.
You know, but look at those players' attitudes. Look at how those players are committed to their national teams. They want to give their all. The best football Harry Maguire plays is when he's wearing the English national team jersey. He's unplayable. He's very brilliant. In Manchester United, he's as slow as anything, you know. But Victor will shine for Napoli, come to Nigeria, and Victor doesn't give or exert the same kind of
Victor puts in effort.
But can I?
Yes,
can I say something?
Yes.
Don't you think it's the fact that we cannot replicate what is available in the midfield from Napoli?
That's part of
because
it too,
you have those tricksters, you have those players who create those opportunities where most of these goals have had to be poachers' goals.
Chidebre, who plays midfield for Napoli? Aguisa, Labota. Who are those? Do you know them? Who are those?
It's not their name, it's how they play.
Are we?
No. My point is, in Napoli, Victor gives his all. Yes. And if possible, I would like to watch the next Super Eagles match with you so that I'll tell you what I'm saying. I'm not carried away by, I don't just talk, I don't just talk, so the truth of the matter is, let's be realistic. I'm not a journalist that they pay to come and talk good. I'm not a journalist. A lot of people don't know I'm not a journalist. I'm not a journalist. I'm not someone that they pay to go and write about someone or talk about person. I will say it as I see it. Victor Osimhen, for me, can do much more than he's doing for his Super Eagles, is all I'm saying.
Well, okay. He works very hard. Every time he played for the Super Eagles, he gave his all, at least in terms of, hard work, running back and forth and all of that and putting in the struggle, but hasn't been as effective. It's like being very hardworking, but not so efficient. Hasn't been very efficient with the Nigerian team. But for quality, I think, you have to give it to him. For the guy who is scoring those number of goals in Europe, he's one of the best finishers in front of goal in the world presently, without question. In front of goal, he is. Satish, before we start to pack our bags and go for today. Yeah.
Well, I would also like to say that if you remember, during the Africa Cup of Nations, Osimhen was supposed to come, and at the last minute, there was a medical issue, and the club's doctors essentially said, no, he can't come. And the Nigerian Federation didn't send their own doctor. And so, look, you might be right. It might be it's not in his best interest, but it's our decision to make. We need to see him. We need to make sure that he's getting the best treatment possible, and that the interests of both Nigeria and Napoli and the player are properly looked after. That didn't happen. The end result of it was maybe there were reasons in that he would have, the Napoli was concerned that the injury he had was going to get worse. Maybe that is true, but it would have had a lot bigger impact and trust on the issue if the Nigerian doctors had been able to go there and say, yeah, that's what we believe. And then you look at just afterwards, the Napoli owner is essentially saying he doesn't want anybody going and representing the national team. So essentially he's saying, I bought Victor Osimhen because I saw how well he was doing. I saw how good he was with Nigeria. I saw how good his development has been. But now that that development has got to the point where he is useful for me, I don't want him playing for the national team anymore. The national teams have to say the Africa Cup of Nations is important and that they have to be defended. And that means you don't tolerate anything getting in the way of this. The Africa Cup of Nations is the most important competition in Africa for international teams. It has to be defended. It has to be played at the right time. It can be different. It can, it depends on the conditions within each of the countries. But if that means you have to play in January and February, then you play in January and February. And that also means any player that the countries want has to be released. And if FIFA's not prepared to do that, then why was he elected again?
Well, final thoughts for today, that of leadership. Leadership. The Super Eagles of Nigeria, from the days of the Red Devils to the Green Eagles, and now we have the Super Eagles. The issue of the leader of a team has always been very, very important and very influential. Important and influential. The captain of the team, we had very strong captains in a Christian Chukwu, in a Stephen Keshi, in a Kanu Nwankwo. These are strong personalities. Like even John Mikel Obi, very strong personalities. Something that I see missing in the present Super Eagles, which is reflected in their lack of fighting for their rights. You don't even hear anybody complain that they haven't been paid allowances or, all those things. A Westerhoff would create the wahala for the team himself. He will raise the issues and make sure that the Eagles are boiling. When they are in that mood, they win. But when they are in this very passive mood and very melancholic mood and everything is working peacefully, the Super Eagles never fly high. This team lacks a leader in the mold of people that I have just told you, people who would go and change the fortune of a team, people who will go and take responsibility. When the team is failing, they will go there and change it. When the team is leading, you will find them there still fighting. We don't have that kind of team. If Stephen Keshi, who would almost hold the country to ransom. Everybody will be shouting, but he's protecting his team. He's asking for their rights. He's doing all of those things. That's, as Nigerians, we need that kind of leadership. I find that missing in this team. Your final thoughts for tonight, before we go. Let me, Onome, you will sign us out of the program. So let me just start from Satish. Your final thoughts for tonight.
Well, I think there's more optimism with the university games than with the Super Eagles, but I would hope that you'll get both and that the Super Eagles will develop again and come again. But I think there's a lot of work to do before that happens.
The starting point will be next week, Friday, against Guinea-Bissau. Guinea-Bissau, they don't even exist when it comes to football. But we'll see how it goes in Abuja next week, Friday. Well, Chidi Ebere, your final thoughts.
Final thought is I'm very grateful to our speaker, Segun Odegbami, who is going to lead our campaign to get him back,
Don't
to
mind
get him
that
back
on
University Sports to
but
where
we'll
he's
try.
supposed to be. But for the Super Eagles, yes, leadership is a situation. I hope we get it right, because football, especially the Super Eagles and the Super Falcons, are what we live for. When the Super Eagles is playing, nobody remembers that there are controversies within the country. Nobody considers the tribe or affiliation of the player. We just know that they're Nigerian. So we need the NFF to get it right, and we hope we get it right.
Onome, Henry Nwosu, you see that guy? When Henry Nwosu was a player, he was a coach. When Henry Nwosu was a player in midfield, he was a coach. He would control the whole team. He would tell you what to play. It's like Christian Chukwu. When Christian Chukwu was captain of the national team, he was coaching the team as he was playing. He was telling players what to do. And, that kind of, like Stephen Keshi, the same kind of thing. Yeah, kind of one quarter to a certain degree, his own was in how he played. He influenced how other players played, when he was captain of that team. So I'm just thinking those thoughts. Anyway, Onome, sign us out of tonight's program. Your final thoughts, move a motion for us to reconvene again next week, Saturday, and that will be it for us here tonight. Onome Obrute.
My final thoughts. To be very honest, I feel very refreshed talking about Nuga. Nuga's discourse of tonight has given me a breath of fresh air, and thank God not only in Lagos, all the way to London. Satish can also breathe it. I think it's more of that we should be having a show. I want to also move a motion that next week we'll have a show that would speak more in depth, like we did tonight, regarding Nuga. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Well, yes, but next week when we're having the show, will just be a day to the match. Our Super Eagles will play a day just before that, or a day after our program. So there's no way we'll run away from discussing the Super Eagles. Let's be hopeful. This is a new year. We believe that Nigeria is going to be a great country from whatever is going on now, and you cannot remove football from it. All of it will come together and work well. As I said, we are not castigating anybody. We are just pointing out the present situation and our feelings about it. So on that note, we'll move a motion for us to reconvene again next week, Thursday, on this show, and discuss other things, but we'll also talk a little about the Super Eagles. We wish them the best of luck next week, Friday. We wish, Chidebere, we wish your team the best of luck when you go to China in July, August. Yes, we'll try and see what we can do to support you by the special grace of He who created all of us. On that note, all those in favor of moving till next week say aye.
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 All those against say nay. No nays today. The ayes have it.
I can speak now. Thank you.
It's a fantastic save. Oh,
Bringing you all
Thank
the
you,
sports
Onome.
you love in living color. Eagle 7, 103.7 FM, Abeokuta, where champions soar.
Shagway is really an artist these days. He's untouchable in that right flank. Shagway is still going, and it's in the net. It is in the net. Goal number 3, incredible.
Eagle 7 Sports Radio. The best sports.
It's lights out and away we go. Sebastian Vettel gets a flyer ahead of Lewis Hamilton.
He's out, too. I don't think he's getting up. He's done. The left hand. Come on, get up.
The best station. The best for you.
Within one.
Eagle 7 Sports Radio. Fly with us. Eagle 7 Sports Radio. 103.7 FM. Where sports and music collide.